she said. You're crossing the line, I said. I want to cross every line on your body. I shouldn't have been staring. Not like that. Not that long. But the way she leaned against the counter, fingers circling the rim of her glass, her eyes somewhere far away, made everything else in the room disappear. Her name slipped through my mind like a secret I wasn't supposed to keep repeating. She wasn't the kind of woman you simply noticed. She was the kind you watched without meaning to. The kind who made silence louder. She caught me. Of course she did. Her gaze slid to mine, and for half a second she didn't look away. That pause, it was enough to send heat crawling up the back of my neck. You're staring, she said softly, a smile tugging at the corner of her mouth but not quite landing. I shifted, suddenly aware of how close I'd let myself drift. Maybe. Or maybe you're just hard not to look at. Her laugh came low, like something she wasn't supposed to let me hear. It carried a weight I couldn't name. She brushed a strand of hair from her cheek, a movement so casual, but the way her fingers lingered near her lips, God, it made my chest tighten. You're crossing the line, she murmured, not harsh, not warning, just naming it, like pointing out rain on the window. And I should have stepped back then. Should have nodded, maybe apologized. But I didn't. Instead, I leaned in, the air between us shrinking until I could feel the warmth of her sleeve against mine. I want to cross every line on your body, I whispered, and for the first time, she didn't have words waiting. The kitchen hummed with the sound of the fridge. The faint tick of the clock. Nothing else. Her eyes fixed on me, steady, as though measuring whether I meant it. She tilted her head, that small graceful movement that made her look at once untouchable and fragile. You shouldn't say things like that, she said finally, her voice a half-breath. Then maybe you shouldn't make it so easy, I answered before I could stop myself. Her hand rested on the counter, not quite touching mine. I noticed the way her fingers curled, as if resisting something. I wanted to trace the delicate lines of her skin, memorize the warmth of her pulse. But I didn't dare, not yet. The air felt heavy, like a storm pressing against the windows. She looked down, exhaled, and when she raised her eyes again, I swear she let me see something raw, something she'd probably spent years tucking away. You're too young to mean what you're saying, she said, softer this time. Or maybe I'm just young enough to say it out loud. Her lips parted as if she had an answer, but nothing came. The silence was thick, charged, and the longer it stretched, the less I cared about sense, about rules, about the years between us. All I knew was the way her nearness worked on me, like gravity, like something I couldn't fight even if I wanted to. I shifted closer. Our shoulders brushed, light as a whisper, but it was enough to jolt both of us. Her eyes closed briefly, lashes trembling, before she pulled back just an inch. The sound of the front door unlocking cut through the moment. A key turning. The faint creak of hinges. She froze. Her hand snapped back from the counter, and her eyes widened, not with fear but with something sharper, regret maybe. Don't, she breathed, more to herself than to me. And then the door opened. The door clicked open, and for a second I thought the spell was gone. Her whole body stiffened, shoulders square, lips pressed thin. A man's voice drifted from the hallway. Neighbor, just dropping off a package. Relief softened her face, but she didn't look at me right away. She kept her eyes on the counter, fingers drumming like she needed an excuse to stay busy. When the door closed again, silence swallowed us back up. She exhaled, almost laughing, though nothing about it sounded amused. You see? She said, finally meeting my eyes. This is why it can't happen. I should have asked what she meant. But I knew. Everyone would. She was old enough to have lived a whole life before me, career, ex-husband, even a son not much younger than me. I was still figuring out rent, finishing degrees, stumbling through nights that felt endless. Can't or won't? I asked, careful, softer than before. Her hand rested on the edge of the counter, knuckles pale. She let out a breath. Both. I wanted to argue, but instead I studied the lines around her eyes. They weren't harsh, just honest. The kind you only got from years of holding things in. She shifted closer, maybe without meaning to. Her shoulder brushed mine again, lingering this time. The heat of her body seeped into me, quiet but undeniable. You remind me of. She started, then cut herself off, biting her lip. Of who? I asked. Her pause lasted too long. Someone who didn't stay. Something sharp twisted in my chest. I wanted to tell her I wasn't him, whoever he was. That I wasn't going anywhere. But words felt cheap stacked against the weight in her voice. So I just stood there, close enough to feel her breathing. Every time she inhaled, her arm rose against mine. A rhythm I couldn't stop noticing. You think this is a game? She said, though her voice cracked in the middle. I shook my head. If it was, I'd have walked away already. Her laugh was barely audible, a short breath against my cheek. It sent a shiver down me I didn't hide well enough. She reached out then, hesitant, like her hand wasn't listening to her mind, and set it on my shoulder. Just a touch. Not even pressure. Her palm stayed there, warm through my shirt, and for one fragile moment she didn't pull away. I leaned in, not enough to cross what she called a line, but enough to feel her breath on my neck, her perfume like something old and familiar. You make everything complicated, she whispered, though her hand hadn't moved. Or maybe you've just been waiting for complicated, I said. Her grip tightened, not much, but enough to let me know she'd heard it, felt it. She closed her eyes, tilted her head slightly, and for the briefest heartbeat, I thought she'd let the world collapse between us. And then she opened them, her gaze burning steady into mine. She didn't speak. She didn't move. But she didn't let go. Her hand was still on my shoulder when the sharp buzz of her phone cut through the air. The vibration rattled against the counter, and she snatched it up like it might explode. Her thumb hovered over the screen. A name lit up that I didn't recognize. She pressed the phone to her chest, eyes closing for a second too long. You should go, she whispered, though her hand was still warm against me. I didn't move. Couldn't. You don't want me to. She let out a shaky laugh, one that sounded like surrender and denial tangled together. You don't know what I want. Yes, I do, I said, softer this time. My words hung there, heavy, filling the space between us. The phone buzzed again. She finally set it down, face down on the counter, as if that could erase it. Then she looked at me, and there was something wild in her eyes. You don't understand how dangerous this is, she said, her voice breaking on the last word. I leaned closer, so close I could feel the faint warmth of her breath when she exhaled. My hand hovered near hers but didn't touch. Not yet. Then explain it to me, I whispered. Her lips parted like she would, but no words came out. Instead, she shook her head and stepped back half a pace. I followed without thinking, the distance collapsing again until her back met the edge of the counter. You're too young, she said, though it didn't sound like conviction anymore. And you're too beautiful for me to care, I answered. Her breath hitched. Silence stretched, broken only by the faint hum of the refrigerator and the uneven rhythm of our breathing. Then, footsteps outside the apartment. The sound of voices, a laugh carried down the hallway. She froze. My pulse jumped. God, she whispered, pressing a hand against my chest, pushing but not really pushing. If anyone, they won't. I cut in, covering her hand with mine. Her palm was trembling. Or maybe it was mine. The footsteps faded. The voices drifted away. Still, she didn't move her hand. Her eyes searched mine, long enough that my throat went dry. Every fraction of an inch between us screamed with possibility. I bent forward, close enough that my lips nearly brushed hers, so close I could feel the ghost of her breath, could see the quick rise and fall of her chest. She turned her head at the last second. My mouth landed near her temple, not her lips, and she let out a sound halfway between relief and regret. You can't, she whispered. But her fingers curled into my shirt, holding on instead of letting go. Neither of us moved. Neither of us breathed right. We just stayed there, her pinned against the counter, me too close to pretend otherwise. And the line she'd drawn between us? It was already gone. Her hand was still tangled in my shirt when she whispered, almost to herself, "This isn't fair." "To who?" I asked, my voice low. Her eyes darted to mine, sharp, like I'd caught her saying something she wasn't supposed to admit. "To me. To you. To everyone who'd—" She stopped, swallowed, and pressed her palms flat against my chest. But instead of pushing me away, she left them there, feeling the uneven beat of my heart. I covered one of her hands with mine. "Then stop pretending you don't want this." Her lips parted, ready with a denial, but the words never came. Instead, her breath came shallow, quick, like she couldn't get enough air. I lifted my hand slowly, brushing a stray lock of hair from her face. My fingers grazed her temple, and she closed her eyes, leaning into the touch before she realized she had. "You make me feel—" She started, then broke off, biting down hard on the inside of her lip. "Tell me," I urged, stepping closer until her body fit against mine, her back pressing into the counter edge. Her head tilted slightly back, her throat bare in front of me. I bent close enough that my lips hovered just at her ear. "Tell me what I do to you," I whispered. Her breast shuddered. One of her hands slid up my chest, clutched at my shoulder, and I knew she wasn't fighting anymore. "You ruined my control," she breathed, her voice trembling. "Every time you look at me like that, I—" She cut herself off, shaking her head as though the words were dangerous to let loose. I pulled back just enough to see her face. Her eyes were dark, searching, desperate. The kind of look that begged me not to leave her alone in it. "You think you're the only one losing control here?" I said. She let out a laugh that cracked in the middle, more confession than amusement. "You're impossible." "Maybe," I said, dipping my forehead to hers, feeling the warmth of her skin against mine. "But you haven't walked away." Her lips were so close I could feel the faintest brush of them when she exhaled. My hand slid to the curve of her waist, thumb pressing lightly through the thin fabric of her blouse. She trembled under my touch, but she didn't move. "This is wrong," she whispered, though her mouth was only a breath from mine. "Then let's be wrong," I answered. Her eyes fluttered shut, her body leaning into me, surrender written in every line of her. My pulse thundered in my ears. I lowered my head, closing the last inch between us, and then a sharp knock rattled the front door. She froze. My lips barely grazed hers, the taste of a kiss that didn't fully happen. Her eyes flew open, wide, panicked. "Don't say anything," she breathed, pressing a trembling finger to my lips just as the knock came again, louder this time. The knock echoed again, sharper this time. She pressed harder against me, her fingers still trembling against my lips. "Stay quiet," she whispered, almost pleading. I nodded. My chest rose against hers as we both held our breath. She pulled away, straightened her blouse with shaking hands, and crossed the room. When she opened the door, her voice was steadier than I expected. It was her sister. A quick exchange about borrowed keys, some casual words, laughter that didn't touch her eyes. She leaned on the doorframe, blocking the view inside with her body. I stayed pressed against the counter, trying not to move, not even breathe. My pulse thudded in my ears. When the door finally shut again, she sagged against it, her hand covering her face. She didn't speak right away. "You should have told me," she said suddenly, her voice raw. My brow furrowed. "Told you what?" She looked up at me, eyes glassy, sharp with something close to anger, or fear. "That you know my son." Her words hit me like a blow. I opened my mouth, closed it, then stepped forward. You didn't think it mattered?" She cut in, her voice breaking. She moved past me quickly, too quickly, brushing my arm with hers. The heat of her touch lingered even as she tried to put distance between us. "I didn't plan this," I said, following. "I didn't know it would be you until you showed up at my door." Her laugh was sharp, hollow. She gripped the back of a chair like she needed it to steady herself. For a moment neither of us spoke. The air between us burned with all the things we weren't saying. Finally, I stepped closer. Does it change how you feel? Her jaw tightened. She didn't look at me. It changes everything. I reached out before I could stop myself, fingers brushing her arm. She flinched, but didn't move away. You think I don't lie awake wondering what people would say? She whispered. Wondering what it would do to him, to me, if anyone knew. Her voice cracked, and she finally turned, eyes locking onto mine. Whatever wall she was building crumbled in that look. I can't stop, I admitted, my voice low. Every time I try to stay away, I end up here again. Her breath hitched. I felt it in the space between us. She stepped closer without meaning to, until her shoulder grazed mine again. Her hand hovered near mine on the chair, trembling, as though deciding whether to close the gap. This is madness, she said, barely audible. Then let it be madness, I whispered. She shut her eyes, exhaling sharply, and when she opened them again, the fight was gone. She lifted her hand, pressed it against my chest, and left it there. I can't, she began, then stopped, swallowing hard. But she didn't take her hand away. Her hand stayed pressed against my chest, the rhythm of my heartbeat pounding into her palm. I covered it with mine, holding her there, afraid she'd slip away if I didn't. You keep saying you can't, I whispered, leaning close enough that my lips brushed the shell of her ear. But you're still here. Her breath trembled. She tilted her head back against the wall, eyes searching mine as if trying to find some last defense to hold on to. You're my son's friend, she said, her voice breaking, fragile and sharp all at once. If anyone finds out. I stepped closer, closing the space until the length of her body met mine, her curves fitting into me as though they'd been waiting. My hand slid to her waist, thumb brushing lightly along the fabric of her blouse. She shivered under the touch. No one's here now, I murmured. Her lips parted, but no sound came out. Instead, she reached up, her fingers grazing the side of my face. The touch was feather-light, hesitant, like she expected me to vanish if she dared too much. I'm terrified, she admitted, her eyes wet but steady. So am I said. But I'd rather be terrified with you than safe without you. The silence between us thickened, heavy with every unsaid thing, every fear, every forbidden thought. My forehead brushed hers, and I felt her breath ghost across my lips. The world narrowed to that single point of contact, that unbearable almost. Say something, she whispered. I can't stop wanting you, I confessed. My voice cracked, raw, nothing left to hide. A broken sound escaped her throat, halfway between a sob and a laugh. Her hand slid to the back of my neck, pulling me closer until the choice wasn't a choice anymore. Our lips met, finally, completely, without hesitation. The kiss wasn't soft. It was hungry, messy, years of loneliness colliding in a single moment. Her body pressed hard into mine, her fingers gripping like she was afraid I'd disappear. I kissed her back with everything I hadn't said, every glance, every restrained touch spilling out all at once. When we broke apart, gasping, her forehead fell against mine. She was shaking, and so was I. This changes everything, she whispered, her voice hoarse. Good, I answered. Let it. Her eyes closed. A tear slipped free, but she didn't move away. She stayed in my arms, breathing with me, letting the silence settle around us not as a barrier, but as something shared. For the first time since that night began, there was no line left to cross. We had crossed them all. She opened her eyes slowly, steady, the fight gone but something stronger left behind. Then don't make me regret it, she said. And in that moment I knew, we finally understood each other. We stayed locked there, her breath still uneven against my cheek, my chest rising and falling under her trembling hands. The kiss had broken something open between us, and there was no going back to silence, no pretending anymore. She pulled away just slightly, enough to look at me. Her eyes searched mine like she was waiting for me to laugh, to shrug, to prove I hadn't meant it. But I just stood there, letting her see everything, want, fear, devotion, all of it laid bare. You're too young, she said again, but softer this time, almost like a habit she couldn't quite let go of. And you're too scared, I answered, brushing my thumb along the edge of her jaw. But neither of those things makes this less real. Her lips parted, but she didn't argue. Instead, she leaned into my hand, her body loosening against mine. A sigh slipped out, fragile, like the sound of someone finally giving up a fight they never wanted in the first place. You don't know what it's like to lose yourself in someone, she whispered. I pulled her closer until her head rested against my chest, the crown of her hair brushing under my chin. Then let me be the first. She stayed there, listening to my heartbeat. I felt her shoulders shake once, but not with sobs, with relief. Her arms circled me slowly, carefully, as though testing the weight of this new reality. I'd been alone for a long time, she admitted, her words muffled against me. I told myself I preferred it. Safer. Easier. And now? I asked. Her fingers tightened in the fabric of my shirt. Now you're here, and I don't want easy anymore. I pressed my lips to the top of her head, a kiss that was nothing like the first, no urgency, no fear. Just quiet, steady truth. She closed her eyes, melting into the gesture, and for the first time that night, I felt her truly relax in my arms. We didn't rush. We didn't need to. We stayed close, bodies pressed together, her breath syncing with mine until the quiet felt less like tension and more like belonging. Finally, she lifted her head, her forehead brushing mine. You understand this won't be simple, she said. I smiled, brushing my fingers along hers until they intertwined. Simple doesn't matter. As long as it's us. Her lips curved, hesitant but real. She squeezed my hand, and I knew then, whatever storms waited outside that room, we had already chosen each other. The night stretched out before us, no longer a secret to run from but a moment to step into. We sat together on the couch, side by side, our hands still linked. She leaned against me, and I kissed her hair again, slower this time. For once, neither of us said anything. We didn't need to. We were together.